I'm pretty sure that most of you are familiar with this term doomscrolling, but actually, this is a fairly new one for me. In fact, I had to ask a young friend of mine from South America to explain what it meant. But even though this is a relatively new term, the phenomena itself is one that has been around for a fairly long time. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the days when there were only 3 channels on terrestrial television. And my brothers and I were ecstatic to hear that they were going to introduce a 4th. In those days, you had to wait all week just to watch the next episode of Star Trek or The Partridge Family. But then at some point, they introduced cable television. And that was a real game changer. It blew the lid off the whole notion of home entertainment. There was a kind of new remote control with all sorts of buttons on it, and you could watch your favorite episodes any time of the day or even in the middle of the night. I mean, in the olden days, they used to switch off the television at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and then all you would get was the constant hum of the 1 kilohertz test pattern. But with the advent of cable television, then suddenly you had literally hundreds of channels, with everything from feature films and documentaries right down to virtual fish tanks and fireplaces. Some people call this remote a clicker, and it was then, in the early 80s, that I first noticed this habit of relentlessly clicking from one channel to another, desperately searching for something gratifying on television. But these days, with the introduction of the smartphone, then you literally have the entire world at your fingertips. Over 1 billion websites, around 4 billion videos on YouTube alone, and over 5 billion social media accounts. And so you may be wondering, what has all this to do with the spiritual path? And more specifically, what has it got to do with enlightenment? Well, here is a spoiler alert, because you're not going to get enlightened by doom scrolling on your smartphone. But here's the thing, we are all looking for happiness, and what's more, we want to be free of suffering. And furthermore, by extrapolation, many of us are looking for some lasting and permanent happiness that we conceptualize as a state of nirvana or liberation. But the problem is, as ordinary beings, then we mix up the causes of happiness and suffering. And then, in our pursuit of happiness, we apply ourselves solely to the causes of suffering, all the while thinking that this will bring us happiness. For example, we think that if we acquire the objects of our desire, then this will make us happy. I mean, that's why we exert ourselves, right? We work hard to earn money to buy the things that we like. Of course, there are an increasing number of people in the West who are just trying to survive. But if you compare our situation with people living in countries like Nepal and other economically depressed and undeveloped nations, then we have a relative amount of luxury. For example, we have a huge variety of different foods to choose from. But for many people in the world, then they're just living from one meal to the next, and they certainly don't have any choice as to what they eat. Even people living in the streets in the West have all sorts of modern conveniences, like mobile phones and other things that a beggar in the streets of Kathmandu would never dream of owning. In fact, these beggars often don't even have shoes to wear. So here's the thing. We have the entire world in the palm of our hands. And whatever it is that we are interested in is available to us at our fingertips. We don't even have to click anymore. In fact, it's all done with a mere gesture. And with the advent of AI, then eventually this whole process will become spontaneous. Now that's a scary thought, isn't it? And this instant gratification is highly addictive. The problem is, we think that by gratifying our desires, we will achieve happiness. But quite the opposite is the case. Gratification is like drinking salt water, And the more that you drink, then the more thirsty you become. And eventually what happens is we become jaded. We are no longer even able to get temporary pleasure from pursuing our addictions. And here's the thing, we bring this attitude with us when we approach the spiritual path. In order to overcome our frustration with modern life, we turn to spirituality. And regardless of whether we use social media apps in our quest for peace and tranquility, or if we travel to the east, to countries like Nepal and India, we do so looking for instant spiritual gratification. And because of our spiritual materialism, then there is an endless stream of charlatans trying to sell us peace and well-being. And even if you intend to leave the materialism of the Western world far behind you and travel to the East, you're still going to encounter many people who are trying to sell you enlightenment. There is next to no one who is able to give you the tools to make meaningful spiritual progress and find lasting happiness and well-being all on your own. This tendency to seek out the most famous teachers with the biggest followings, offering the highest and most profound teachings, going from one Lama to the next, from one precious guru to another accomplished Zen master, all in order to gratify our desire for supernatural, spiritual experiences in the form of blessings and empowerments, reading transmissions, and even just looking for spiritual entertainment that can be found at religious gatherings such as the Kagyu Munlam. And we do this all the while seemingly ignorant of the fact that there has never been something external that could be bestowed upon us, uncovered or revealed by another. We think that merely being in the presence of a teacher or a holy relic, then somehow magically the qualities of enlightenment will rub off on us spontaneously, and that we can awaken to the profound spiritual truth of reality without any effort on our part. Whether relentlessly trawling through the spiritual hashtags on social media, or relying on the algorithm of our favorite video platform such as YouTube, in the hope that these may deliver to us esoteric spiritual knowledge, we never stop trying to doomscroll our way to enlightenment. Just stop already. Put down your smartphone and close the lid of your laptop. Just sit there and take a breath for a moment. I know people who have had hundreds of empowerments of all the tantric deities, but who have never practiced a single one, let alone accomplished the inner meaning of that practice. There is a saying in Tibetan Buddhism, and it goes, the Tibetans practice 100 deities, but never come to understand a single one. The Indians practice a single deity and come to know them all. If it was the case that a single video on YouTube was able to gratify your desire for entertainment, then why would you ever need to watch another one? And similarly, if you already know how to practice, if you understand meditation, then why would you need to seek something else? The truth is, we don't know how to meditate. But most people think it's merely a matter of sitting in the present moment, and this alone is enough to achieve awakening. But if this is the case, and you already know how to practice, and it's merely a matter of remaining in the present moment, then why on earth are you still doom-scrolling? You can go halfway around the world, chasing after the most famous teachers and the most profound teachings. But if you do, can you realistically, in the span of just one lifetime, put all of those instructions into practice, especially if you're spending all your time chasing after the Dharma? You need to be smart if you want to practice the path. And what's more, you need to know how to invest your time and what to exert yourself in. That is, if you want to make progress on the path. But I've spoken about this point in many other videos, so I think I'll just leave it at that. So see you later, and good luck with your meditation.